a warm welcome to HW News Network, your one-stop show, truth be told, for some engaging and thought-provoking conversations. There seems to be no end to controversies at the India AI Impact Summit 2026. Today, a group of youth Congress workers took off their t-shirts and briefly protested at Bharat Mandapam in Delhi, raising slogans against Prime Minister Narendra Modi before being whisked away by security personnel. Now that the incident happened on a day when several top CEOs attended the AI summit, raised the BJP's hackles, who called it an attempt by the Congress to sabotage India's global image. Now let's see what unfolded at this summit. Now the protesters reportedly entered the venue using QR coded passes. The Delhi police sources said that around 10 people claiming to be members of the Youth Congress participated in the demonstration. That's what exactly they've said, and I'm going to quote that 4 to 5 individuals have been taken into custody. What I'm told is, and if you see the pictures on the screen, here you see the topless protest, the shirtless protest, which has gone viral today on the social media. Now, these protesters from the Youth Congress, they marched inside hall number 5. This is hall number 5, where you see them holding their T-shirts. And inside the hall number 5, these Youth Congress workers were also raising slogans. They were raising T-shirts which had the imprint of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and former US President Donald Trump, along with slogans such as India-US trade deal, Epstein files, and PM is compromised. Now, the protest lasted only a few minutes, but resulted in a commotion, with some attendees expressing shock at the disruption. Now, BJP obviously has slammed this protest, and they said that this is a deliberately orchestrated disruption. And in fact, Sambit Patra also held a press conference saying that Congress is a traitor. The Youth Congress leaders are a traitor. They are brainless. They are topless. This is what he had to say. Now, this is all coming in the backdrop of this AI summit. These pictures which you see have gone viral, and they've become a huge talking point. Now, whether these protests were fair or unfair, that's a different question altogether. But PM Modi is compromised, US trade deal, Epstein files, these were the buzzwords at this brief protest which happened at the Bharat Mandapam at the AI summit. Now, shortly after this protest was over, these workers, these Youth Congress workers, were whisked away by the police. There was a huge meeting at 10 Rajaji Marg at Mallikarjun Kharge's residence, where it was decided that now in 5 to 6 states, before the second part of the budget session begins, there will be a protest by the farmers, by the cotton growing farmers in areas like Bhopal, in Yavatmal, in various, and this protest is going to go nationwide, where there'll be a huge protest by the farmers. You can see Jairam Ramesh coming out and speaking to the media immediately after this meeting was over at 10 Rajaji Marg. Now, why is all this protest taking place? Because Congress is wanting to make a point that this is a compromised prime minister. India has given too many concessions to America. India has surrendered before America, and it has not taken into account the welfare of the farmers. This is what is coming out of the protest, the announcement of the protest which Jairam Ramesh made, and also the protest, the expression of protest by the Youth Congress leaders. Now, what we are seeing consistently, that Donald Trump is also in some way or the other trying to pressure India. Now, yesterday, Donald Trump was speaking at the Board of Peace. He again made a mention of the fact that he tried to impose 200% tariffs on India and Pakistan, and that's when the two countries agreed for a ceasefire. His tirade didn't stop there. He also made a mention of 11 jets being downed. So which means that at the Board of Peace, where India was present as an observer, he again was trying to pressure India to come into Board of Peace as a permanent member. Now, is Donald Trump trying to consistently apply pressure on India? And why is India not able to say anything? Which is why these protests are happening, which is why you see this anger growing. Now, I would like to play out the bite of Donald Trump, where he's talking about how 11 jets were downed. Let's listen.
Bad things happen. So, Prime Minister, I want to thank you because that was a very big deal. People have no idea. A lot of them say, "Oh, well, they weren't fighting." They were fighting. 11 jets were shot down, very expensive jets, and they were all in. Both of them were all in, and now they.
Here you saw he's talking about 11 jets being downed, and also in the same clip, he is talking about 200% tariff being imposed on India and Pakistan, and which is why they agreed for a ceasefire. So you see that the impression which goes out is that India has surrendered. Prime Minister Modi is a compromised prime minister, and in some way or the other, the impression also goes that Prime Minister Modi has not been able to take into account the interest of the farmers, and which is why this kind of a protest was today seen. Joining me this evening is Mohsin Raza Khan, international affairs expert. Thank you so much, Professor Mohsin Raza Khan. And my first question to you is this shirtless protest which played out at the at the Artificial Intelligence Summit playing out in Delhi. Would you say that it has really humiliated and insulted India at an international event like this?
I wouldn't say it has insulted India in any way because, first of all, the guests have already left. Yesterday was the main day. And they were trying to make their voice heard, which in a democracy should be normal, especially considering the state that we are in, the problem with freedom of speech that we have. Just yesterday, a case was entered in the Delhi High Court, which said that UAPA is so draconian, and this is Arvind Datar, the lawyer, saying it in front of the court, that even if he were to say, for example, that the AI summit was no good, just that much is enough to say that India is being defamed and UAPA or anti-terrorism laws to be applied, which means that no bail and years of jail for something as little as that. So we have a kind of an undeclared emergency where we can't speak our minds.
Are you suspecting that police is going to slap a UAPA case against these youth Congress workers? They have been detained. Now we do not know what, but Sambit Patra held a press conference where he said that these Congress workers are topless, they are traitors, they are brainless. He went to the extent of saying that. So are you suspecting that there'll be a UAPA case against these youth Congress workers?
If you remember, a few years ago, there was a protest in Parliament by unemployed youth who were not affiliated to any political party.
Yes.
And severely draconian laws were applied to them. I don't remember whether it was sedition or UAPA, what was applied. So these workers made it.
No, they carried smoke cans. They carried smoke cans and went inside the house, and which is why the cases were slapped against them.
Yeah. But that certainly cannot be considered terrorism, in my opinion, nor could it be considered seditious against the Republic of India or something. They were making a point that they were unemployed for years and the government was doing nothing for them. So the Congress workers may not get UAPA slapped against them because they are political party workers. I don't know. But the others, if anybody else had done this, for sure, they would have been hauled to court without bail for years. So in such circumstances, people do what they can. I mean, even in a draconian system like China or Russia, after all, people do protest at huge costs. They spend years in jail after that. India is supposed to be a democracy with freedom of speech, according to our constitution. So they were well within their rights, I would say.
Right. But Mohsin, do you feel that now there'll be a serious case against these youth Congress workers? Because I don't know what is going to happen, what action will be taken. But do you think that it has really insulted India on a day like this, when it was a final day of the AI summit? And given the fact that for the last 3-4 days, AI summit has only grabbed headlines for the controversies. And this was the last thing anyone could have expected.
See, on the substantive points, it is true when they say Epstein that minister of the government had his name appear in the papers, in the Epstein papers. Dozens of emails, many meetings, and a lot of interaction between. At that point, he was a BJP member, but not yet a minister, and a convicted uh, child sex offender. That is, Epstein had been convicted by 2008. So when Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri was meeting him in 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, he was a convicted man already. You can't make the excuse that you didn't know that he was a child sex
As an
offender.
analyst, Mohsin, as an analyst, if you have to look at these shirtless protests which happened at the AI summit, do you think it was untimely? It was rude on the part of Congress to hoist a protest like this on a day like this, and especially at an international event like an AI summit. Was this kind? Can the party actually justify these kind of protests on a day like this?
What do you do when the entire mainstream media, what I call the Modi media, refuses to carry even things like Rahul Gandhi's Padyatra, which were quite popular online and in person? So there's a kind of a media shutdown on the opposition. The opposition can't get its voice heard, and in fact, it is only the Congress actually that you hear. You almost never hear of any other opposition party, whether it's the Communist Party, CPIM, or you never hear of even the Samajwadi or Trinamool Congress or DMK leading large protests, in at least not in the capital. So if the main opposition party can't raise its voice, then who can? So I don't see this as defaming India at all. In fact, if anything, it should raise India's prestige. Were it to be true that India has that kind of freedom of speech,
Do you
that
believe?
we can get away.
But do you believe that Congress has been able to send out a message which it has been raising in Parliament on the streets about Epstein files, whether or whether it is about the US trade deal that India has surrendered? Prime Minister Modi is compromised. Now, this is what Congress has been consistently saying since the beginning of the budget session, since the time the Epstein files disclosures happened. This is what Congress has been saying. So, was Congress able to convey this message at an international forum like this today?
See, most of the international guests, at least the prominent ones, have left. So this was more of a domestic stage now today. And, it was, if you look at this event itself, it is a bit of a farce. That is,
Okay, I'll just interrupt you here because there's a breaking news coming in. You can see the ANI tweet on your screen, which says that Indian Youth Congress Bharat Mandapam protest. Delhi police sources say Delhi police conducted raids across Delhi NCR in connection with Youth Congress protest at Bharat Mandapam. Raids are underway to apprehend protesters who fled the Mandapam. 4 arrests have been made so far. Raids are underway to locate the remaining protesters. Identifications are ongoing based on over 15 video clips. Now, the police have obtained some names during interrogation. The protesters' phones are switched off. Now, what is this situation going to lead to? What are you suspecting, Mohsin?
I'm hoping that because they are political party members, they will not be suffering the same consequences that a common citizen would if he were to protest. So, but the way things are going, the kind of draconian way they are clamping down, I fear it could turn the other way as well. And we have covered the Epstein files, but even the other issues that they have raised, for example, the India-US or India-EU trade deals, they're not wrong in the sense that I've covered them in my own channel, on my own videos, that in some areas we have kind of sold out. As I said, in terms of agriculture, in terms of certain kinds of manufacturing, especially automotive sector.
Without justifying these protests, but if you remember when BJP was in the opposition, I still remember during the Commonwealth Games, Nitin Gadkari was one of those leaders who stood on the barricade and raised a voice during those times. So we have also seen that. And not to forget, when you have these global meetings like climate change summit or various international conferences happen, don't we see protesters wearing black bands, raising slogans, raising posters? So how on earth does this protest become an act of being an anti-India protest?
Not in the least. In fact, I would say that the trade deals themselves are quite, in some respects, anti-India. And whether it was the EU trade deal or the US trade deal, on manufacturing at least, we have opened up in a way which threatens our automotive sector. For example, automotive associated sectors employ about half of our manufacturing output. That is, automotive and related ancillaries constitute 7% or 6.5% of our GDP. And our total manufacturing is about 12.5% of our GDP. So they constitute half of our GDP. And if that is being threatened because of these deals, that means the workers and their employment in these areas is being threatened. So I don't think protesters were wrong on those deals. And if you look at the third case as well, which they took up, that is the AI summit as well. We have given up our AI sovereignty. Our data will be, now available in the US to these companies. We will also have to vet our models through them. We will, in a way, become a dependent completely
Right.
on.
My office backroom is just playing out a bite. I don't know if you can play that out, but IANS has put out a tweet, and you can see in the picture CWC member and Congress admin in charge, Gurdeep Sappal. I think he's given a bite to a number of channels, and this IANS tweet says that on the protest by youth Congress workers during the India AI summit, Congress leader Gurdeep Sappal says youth often become emotional when they feel their future is being stifled and their careers are being put at risk. At times, in that passion, they express their anger, and today they did so to voice their feelings. Mohsin, what do you feel? Is Congress able to justify this? Because many feel that Congress is on a back foot today, and they are trying to defend the indefensible act. Because nowhere can you justify that you're having an international event in Delhi and the principal opposition party jumps into a protest like this, shirtless protest, and saying that the PM is compromised.
Well, the last time there was an international event and Trump was visiting, you remember that the ruling party was holding protests against the CAA, NRC. In fact,
Yes.
they helped trigger the riots in Delhi in 2020. So this is much more milder compared to that. And I think, as I said, the youths are justified. You see, the unemployment rate in Indian youth population is above 25 to 30%. And among educated Indians, youth, it is close to 50%. So if they don't feel that they're getting job opportunities and fair opportunities in life, and more of it is going to be threatened because, as you know, AI is threatening many of the software industry's jobs. And India was largely dependent on software exports, not just directly Infosys and TCS, etc., but also the multiplier effect of these jobs. That is, people who supplied to these guys everything from food and flats and construction and drivers, etc. They're all threatened now because this AI is going to replace many of these software engineers, which was India's main export. This will affect our real estate market, our stock
Right.
market.
Right. But Mohsin, I also want to take the viewers to this connecting link which is coming out. Now, yesterday at Board of Peace, India was present as an observer. The next day, where Donald Trump, of course, says that 11 jets were down, then he talks about a 200% tariff on India and Pakistan. And next day today, at the India AI Summit, we see that India formally joins the Pax Silica. Now, what does that mean? There is a lot of buzz on the social media that we have almost pledged our sovereignty. We have sold our data. We have sold our semiconductors. So again, then the end message is that we are giving too many concessions to America. So what is wrong with these protests which have happened today? If India has today formally joined Pax Silica, then does it not go to show that again we are pandering to the American interests much more than the Indian interests?
Not only are we doing that, but despite Trump repeating publicly and on many occasions where Indian representatives are present, you can say the UN, this, that, and here also at the Gaza Peace Board, India has never protested, or forget protesting. India has never even given a clarification. Neither the Prime Minister nor any of the ministers have clarified that no, this is not true. We have not lost any jets, or this is an exaggeration. We have lost a few, but not that many. No clarification ever, no rebuttal ever of the US president, despite repeated, uh, as from Indian definition, violations of civilized behavior. But there's been nothing on our part. So will India, if I mean, look at this tax silica, as was discussed earlier. We have pledged our sovereignty in a way. We have given our data up. We are basically uh, kind of becoming AI vassals of the United States, and this will hurt us in the long term
No, but
because
yesterday,
these.
if you have seen Prime Minister Modi's speech, that speech covers a large gamut of things. He's talking about AI sovereignty, he's talking about AI governance, he talks about AI inclusivity, and the next day we are seeing is something which is totally different from what Prime Minister Modi is talking about.
If you remember, in 2023, Sam Altman, the founder of ChatGPT, OpenAI company, he had come to India, and when he was asked in a very large public meeting
Yeah, I'll
whether
just
India.
interrupt. I'll just interrupt you because there's an ANI tweet where Ashwini Vaishnav is speaking, and I'm just going to read it out for the viewers. We can't play that bite because that bite is of ANI. Ashwini Vaishnav is saying, and I'm quoting him: "When so many good things are happening, how one small thing can be highlighted so much? It's a personal learning for me. It was also a learning for me that people who are in politics, some of the people are opposition. They don't even understand what the youth today wants, and they try to create things which are sad in a way and funny in another way." Now, what does that statement coming in from Ashwini Vaishnav mean? Mohsin, how would you look at this?
Vaishnav is trying to defend the indefensible. He's trying to say that it is the fault of the opposition. Whatever shortcomings the government has done, has made. So, as I said, Sam Altman came here in 2023, and he said that India should not be trying to compete on foundational models in AI because that requires large investments, very large investments of hundreds of billions of dollars. And India is a poor country, doesn't have those kind of resources. It requires huge amounts of water and electricity. We don't have electricity or water for even our own citizens. How are we going to give millions of gallons of water and millions of gigabytes of energy to these AI companies? So he was right in some ways. He was that we should develop an AI stack, but not go for foundational models. Now, all of these guys have come. If you have noticed, Sam Altman came also yesterday, along with the head of Anthropic, Mario. Dario. What's his name? All of them now are singing public praises. And there is a private video of Sam Altman saying that he had no idea why and how that he was going to be taken on a stage and he would have to raise his hands, holding everybody's hands. He had no idea what was going to happen, and he
But
just played along.
Mosi, if you look at the entire AI summit in totality, it's just a sordid saga of embarrassments and nothing else. Now, look at what has happened. This Global Times, which is a Chinese news platform, what has it said today? Again, it has talked about this Galgotia University fiasco. I'm just going to read out a little about what they have mentioned. International and Indian media continue to scrutinize India's Galgotia's University reported false claim of a Chinese made robotic dog as its own innovation at the India AI Impact Summit 2026, with some describing the episode as an embarrassment for the host country. As the incident unfolds, Indian netizens have begun examining whether the Indian university had borrowed more innovation from other countries, further intensifying public discussion about academic accountability at high profile government backed events in India. Now, if a Chinese news platform is writing like this, what can really one say? And the government can't see this, but the government has caught the wrong end of the foot, and they are now blaming the Congress for this kind of a protest. They can't see this embarrassment at all.
Yeah, no, this Galgotia has embarrassed us earlier as well. So this is not the first time. But this was more egregious because A, it was so in your face, and B, it was palming off a Chinese robot as Indian. So that's adding insult to injury, considering that China is in some ways our opponent, at least on the border issue. So there were even bigger embarrassments. Prime Minister Modi turned up for a surprise visit on Wednesday, one day before he was supposed to come, and the police, etc., vacated the entire space. Because of that, many of the exhibitors, they kept insisting to let them stay, but despite that, they were pushed out. And when they came back, they found their laptops were stolen. Their material was stolen. So basically there was no concern for the common citizen, and people were pushed out into the sun without water, food, etc. So basically, if you see right now in New Delhi, in the NDMC area, all the shops have been shut, which were near the main roads. So many of these shopkeepers have suffered a loss of livelihood for 3-4 days continuously. Basically, again, the same VIP red light culture and no concern for the common citizen. It was, from my perspective, this was a largely PR exercise. Because if you see, as I said, from that candid interview, that video that has been released of Sam Altman, it's all over Twitter. He says he had no idea what he was supposed to be doing on stage, and everything was a surprise. He was just following instructions, and all of them were almost reading off a script. I think they had been told that they had to come here and praise the prime minister and his government in order to be able to continue to do business in India. And so all of them were repeating the same kind of PR lines, about India being the next
I
AI.
want to ask you, Mohsin, on one or two questions very crucially on the Board of Peace. Now, yesterday at Board of Peace, India was present there as an observer. On 12th February, MEA spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal said that yes, an invitation has come to us, but that invitation is under consideration. Now, 12th February, the invitation is under consideration. By 20th of February, India is seen sitting there, their charge d'affaires of India in Washington. He seems to be sitting there as an observer, which many people feel there is no harm. A country can participate as an observer. But doesn't it go to show that India is engaging with the Board of Peace? So, where does it take us when it comes to the rules based order of the world? Because are we saying that we are going to completely dismiss United Nations like what Donald Trump is saying? Because everyone knows that Board of Peace is a structure or is an edifice which Donald Trump is trying to erect parallelly to the United Nations. So is India trying to signal to the world that we are also going to be dismissive of United Nations? Then what happens to our aspirations of securing a permanent seat in the Security Council? Does all that go out of the window then?
Absolutely right, Nilu. This Gaza Peace Board was a replacement for the United Nations. There's no doubt about it. And by registering our presence there, we are in a way giving it credibility. We are acceding to its authority. So that seems like for us, the UN is not that important. We are trying in every which way to please Trump and the US. In fact, even with respect to Israel, over 80 countries voted to condemn the Israeli move of taking over ownership of the land in West Bank, so that they could push out the Palestinians and do the ethnic cleansing in those areas. In fact, even a former Israeli Prime Minister, Ehud Olmert, has condemned this. But India did not vote against it, and which shows that India is trying very hard to please the Israelis and the Americans. It seems like we have kind of become totally aligned with wherever we feel power is. When it comes to Xi, we go to China, we're trying to please him, being obsequious. When it comes to the US, same thing. So the whole notion of non-alignment is gone, And when they told us to stop buying oil from Russia, we said, great, to the US, we will comply. So, and making enemies out of Putin, which is very dangerous because Russia supplies 60% of our weapons, So all our spare parts, so in a way we are hurting our own security, our defense security, just to keep the US in good humor. We gave up the Chabar port in which we had invested millions of dollars. So we have more or less complied with whatever the US wanted. We had stopped buying oil from Iran, which was heavily discounted oil, just to please the US and Israel. So our foreign policy seems to be totally subservient, and our national interest, despite whatever was being claimed earlier. When we were buying oil from Russia, it was said.
It's very, very clear, like what you are also pointing out, that our foreign policy is completely subservient. We are trying to be obsequious as far as our interests are concerned. So, isn't that what the Congress is also saying, but maybe in a different way altogether, because it is just not registering? When Congress was saying this in Parliament, then the MPs were suspended, they were thrown out for the entire session. Not to forget that 8 MPs were suspended. Congress did the same thing today at the AI summit by going topless. The Youth Congress workers did a topless a protest. Now that again is seemingly being projected as a traitor act. But isn't this what Congress is trying to convey, and trying to convey to the people of the country that, look, our interests have been surrendered. Prime Minister Modi is a compromised prime minister. There are various instances, US trade deal, Epstein files, and so many things. And this is why Jairam Ramesh today had to announce that we are going nationwide with the protest, with the farmer protest. So can this, and this is my last question to you, Mohsin, that can this become Prime Minister Modi's undoing if the protests thicken, if the protests consolidate in the coming days and months?
There are many ifs here, so I'm not sure how this will pan out. But I can tell you one thing, that the absurdity of our foreign policy is making Bangladesh our enemy through Godi media and the government, and making Taliban our friend. And it's being done purely because there are elections due in April in West Bengal and Assam. So the foreign policy has become an extension of the ruling party's electoral policies. Obviously, this means that our national interest is being compromised. So protests are justified. Now, how they will pan out will depend a lot on how citizens and your viewers project this, carry this forward, this message forward, because Godi media won't. So alternate media online has to pick it up. Your viewers have to pick it up and amplify the message. Only then such protests can succeed. Otherwise, unfortunately, we will be muzzled like in the past.
Absolutely. Okay, so we'll have to wait and watch now how the nationwide protests will pan out, as Jairam Ramesh, after the evening meeting was over at 10 Rajaji Marg, he came out and gave a bye to all the news channels, saying that we are protesting, and these protests will start from Bhopal going to Yavatmal. And before the second half of the budget session commences, there will be a string of protests by the farmers in different parts of the country. We'll have to end it here. Thank you so much, Mohsin, for joining on HW News. Thank you.